Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
I want to take a moment to invite you to think about the last time that somebody in your life that you knew got some bad news. Maybe it was a diagnosis. Maybe it was something that you would need to check in on them in like 3 months or 6 months. And oftentimes when we get this type of bad news, we think about the first phone call we make to this person, the first few weeks when people show up and meals are coming. But then time moves on, 6 months in, 8 months in. Sometimes crises become chronic situations. And sometimes we make a mistake. We move on. But the person in our lives hasn't. They're still in it. And somehow, without us deciding to make this, they become a little bit invisible. Most of us have watched this happen to somebody. Some of us might feel right now that you are that person. And I think that our Torah reading teaches a perfect lesson about this. And it's some of the most puzzling Torah that we read. And I know Ella did a beautiful job trying to make her way through it too. But one of the things that our Torah reading is about this week is a strange skin condition called Tazria. And what the Torah says to do when it appears. And what the Torah says to do is, don't go to a doctor, go to a priest, the spiritual leader of the community. Wait 7 days and have the priest look again. Possibly wait another 7 days and have the priest look at it again. This, to me, seems like a bureaucratic nightmare. Why does the Torah tell the Israelites to receive care for a physical ailment from a spiritual leader? And I think the reason is because it is one of the first blueprints that we have for Bikur Cholim. Here at Shola Temple Beth Hillel Bethel, we pride ourselves on being a caring community. We check in on each other when we're sick, we visit at the hospital, we bring meals to those with their own physical ailments to prevent them from taking care of themselves. The work of Bikur Cholim is slow, it's patient, and it's sustained by love. It's not the first visit or the first meal. It's the challenge that I posed to you at the beginning. It's what happens after a long period of time. And that's also the work of Tazria. The Kohen looks at the one who's inflicted with the skin condition multiple times. And this turns out to be the foundation for this obligation we have to each other, to take care of each other, not just the first time. The Torah doesn't just describe what Tazria looks like. It describes what the Kohen should do when he's not sure, and what he does again and again, which is to wait and to come back. And when the Kohen is sure that this person has Tazria, the Torah tells us that the Kohen puts the person into quarantine for 7 days. And that might seem pretty extreme and pretty isolating, but the Kohen doesn't just stop there. He returns, and he looks again. And sometimes he quarantines the person for another 7 days and comes back. I think that this isn't an inefficiency. I think that it is how we should take care of each other. The Torah is building this weird case into a procedure on purpose. To understand what this purpose is, we need to really understand what kind of condition Tazria is. The Ramban argues explicitly that Tazria is not a medical condition in any ordinary sense. It is what the Ramban calls a nes, a miracle, a spiritual phenomenon that manifests on one's body, which means the Kohen is not a doctor making a clinical judgment. He is something much harder, someone trying to read a sign on the surface of another's body and understand what it points to, what stress is being caused underneath. And this helps us understand something that can otherwise seem cruel about the whole procedure. When the person with tzara'at is sent out of the community, is sent out of camp, they're isolated. They're cut off from their family and from their community and from the normal rhythms of their life. But the Ramban says that this isn't punitive. This isn't for the purpose of punishment. The isolation is a consequence of what tzara'at is, a spiritual condition that has disrupted the person's connection to the world around them. The separation is, in a sense, making their illness visible. The body has already physically disconnected, so the isolation is the social reality that matches what's happening inside. Which means the real danger of tzara'at is not the skin condition itself. It's the loneliness that could occur. And that's precisely why the Kohen keeps coming back. It's not to monitor or to check boxes, but because into that isolation, into the place where the person has separated from everyone who knows them, somebody has to keep showing up. Somebody has to keep seeing them as a full human being, not just as a condition to be evaluated. This, to me, is an act of Bikur Cholim. The commentator Nechama Leibovitz, in her analysis of these parshiot, tries to hammer down on exactly how hard this task is. She trains us, the reader, to see how two symptoms that look identical can carry completely different meanings. A patch that looks like tzara'at might be tzara'at, or it might be something else entirely. The surface can never tell you which means that when you're looking, or when the Kohen was looking, the Kohen had to resist saying, I've seen this before and I know what it is. Because the stakes of misreading tzara'at are too high. To look at something on the surface of a person and decide too quickly that you know what it means is not just a diagnostic error. It's a failure of seeing. And in this system, a failure of seeing has consequences for the person who has seen. The Mishnah rules that even when all of the simanim, all of the symbols of tzara'at are present, when everything is visible on the skin, the person is not declared as tameh or as impure until the Kohen actually says to the person, you have become impure. What that means is that the Kohen is not just observing this person's reality, he's actually very precise in a legal sense. He's creating a declaration that is like a constitute. Because the Metzora during all of this is isolated. And when you're cut off from the community, this Kohen keeps coming. This procedure is different than what we think of Bikur Cholim. We think of Bikur Cholim as an act of kindness, and it is. And the Rambam tells us that it is. It says that the obligation of Bikur Cholim comes from the words Ve'ahavta l'orecha kamocha. It's an obligation to check in on somebody. But what the Kohen teaches us that's different is that Bikur Cholim is about presence, about refusing to let someone's illness become the totality of who they are. And that's exactly the procedure that Nechama Leibovitz warns us about. When someone in our community gets sick, chronically sick, or is grieving, something happens to how we see them. We begin to relate to them through their condition. Slowly and without meaning to, we collapse them into this one fact that we know about them. And the collapse is sort of a premature declaration. We've declared them and we've stopped looking. But what the Kohen teaches us is that the return is the antidote, but the obligation continues. A spontaneous visit during the first month of someone's sickness is easy. What's hard is the third month and the 6th month. And a year in, when whatever has happened to this person has worn off, but the person is still isolated, and want someone to ask not about their diagnosis or about their loss, but about them. That visit almost never happens unless someone is responsible for making sure it does. Which is why the Torah's model is not individual acts of chesed alone. It's a kohen, somebody who is paid, someone whose job is designated. They have a specific responsibility. Their job is to come back. We do this here at Beth Hillel Bethel. We have our Bikur Cholim committee run by wonderful volunteers, none of whom I think are here today, Rachel Dunaev and Batya Warshawski and Mindy Oppenheimer, who have been doing this work for years. But there's always more work to be done, more people to check in past the 2-week mark, more people to check in past the 2-month mark, and maybe even past the 2-year mark. And this is why we have to keep renewing our commitment to being a caring community. This is why this weird parsha about a skin condition is so vital. The work of the Kohen, it's not glamorous. It's not to heal the skin condition. There's no fixing. All he does is return. All he does is look again. All he does is refuses to believe that what looks super scary is the final word on who this person is. And that is what this parsha calls us to do. Not because the act of Bikur Cholim cures anything, but because the act of returning, of coming back again and again, is itself a declaration that we say to our friend in front of us, you are more than what is visible on the surface. You're still here, and so are we. Shabbat Shalom.